It's a case that shocked the nation and is back in the headlines again because of the woman at the center of it is up for parole. Susan Smith has been in prison for nearly 30 years now for killing her two sons, Michael and Alex Smith. She drove her car with her children inside into a lake in Union County, South Carolina back in 1994. She initially claimed a black man took her car and her kids. It led to a nationwide search that made international headlines for days before Smith confessed.
And Queen City News anchor Derek Dellinger has a look now back at the case and what to expect at the parole hearing, which is happening tomorrow.
It is arguably one of the biggest cases of the 90s that people remember. A mother, Susan Smith, pleading with the public for the return of her sons, only for her to confess days later that she had killed them. It's a story that made national and international headlines. Last month marked 30 years since the deaths of those two kids, and the story back in the headlines now because of the possibility that Susan Smith could get parole.
Take me back to what happened.
Okay, I was stopped at a red light, and just out of nowhere, this black guy came up and just opened the door and jumped in the car, and he had a gun, and he had it pointed in my side and told me to drive, and so I did. And when I tried to ask him why he was doing this or whatever, he just told me to shut up or he'd kill me.
This is the first interview done with Susan Smith and her husband David right after she reported her two sons, Michael and Alex, missing. But even then, something didn't really make sense with the case. Cynthia Barnes Booker was the first reporter who spoke with Smith right after it all happened, a story that to this day she remembers. And she remembers the conversation she had with a coworker right after.
She couldn't look me in the eye. She kept looking down. So I didn't really know what to make of that. I said, something doesn't sit right. I don't know. I don't believe it. I just don't believe the story.
But it was a story that got a lot of attention in a short amount of time. And over the course of 9 days, searches extended all over Union County, South Carolina, across the region, and even across the country, even as investigators and prosecutors, like then Solicitor Tommy Pope, had an issue piecing Susan's initial story together. 9 days later,
they gave her a legal pad and said, just write how you were feeling. And that's when the quote confession, it was the worst day of my life. Somebody I loved did not love me. I sunk to my lowest when I let the kids go down the ramp without me. That tied her to doing it.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3 and Alexander 14 months.
The car recovered from John D. Long Lake, the children still inside, and a case that left a lot of people with feelings about her and the case that has still lingered on even after 30 years. Susan Smith was convicted and sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Initially imprisoned in Columbia, 2 guards were later charged with having sex with her. Since then, she's been at a state correctional facility in Greenwood and has had some trouble even in prison. The latest incident happened earlier this year when she was charged with communicating with a documentary filmmaker in prison and received money from him. This is against South Carolina Department of Corrections policy on prisoners doing interviews. They can't do them at all. Tommy Pope, who prosecuted Susan Smith's case and who is now a lawyer in Rock Hill and a state legislator, says Smith should stay in prison.
I'm a supporter of truth in sentencing. The jury gave her life. I think she needs to remain there. I think she has not learned her lesson, and I'm sadly not sure that she ever will.
As of Monday, the state parole board says they've received around 471 letters regarding Susan Smith's parole. Only 6 of them were in support of it. Susan Smith will be attending the hearing by video link, but others are expected to be in attendance in Columbia for that parole hearing. We'll be there too, and we will let you know what happens. Derek Dellinger, Queen City News.